I want to go to Matthew Chance now, who is in Beijing with some reaction from China. Matthew, what are you hearing there? What's being said?
Well, I think actually, Rosemary, it's far too early to get some reaction from the Chinese. We've been in contact with the country's foreign ministry. It's a public holiday here. There's not any official reaction to it yet, but obviously this is an event that will be looked at very carefully here in Beijing, elsewhere in China as well. They're very concerned about the situation as it's developing on the Korean peninsula. We have been in contact with the Chinese Geological Survey, and they've confirmed what the US has already confirmed, that they have detected this earthquake measuring something in the order of 4.9 on the scale of magnitude in that area around the place where North Korea has in the past conducted underground nuclear tests. And so it is looking increasingly likely, as our guests and as we've been reporting over the past few minutes since this news broke, that it is some kind of nuclear test by North Korea, although at the moment, as I say, that is not confirmed. But again, this is something that China will be looking at very carefully. It's done quite a lot diplomatically, in fact, to try and prevent the North Koreans from carrying out a third nuclear test. Its newspapers here in the country have been strident in their criticism of North Korea, relatively speaking anyway, and its stated intentions to carry out a nuclear test like this. It's interesting because China is always seen as the one country that wields influence over North Korea and can try and get it to do what it wants the rest of the world, what the rest of the world wants it to do. It provides North Korea with economic support, with fuel supplies and food supplies and things like that. It provides it with a certain amount of diplomatic cover as well. That diplomatic cover has been dropped recently. China backed the most recent United Nations Security Council resolution condemning North Korea's rocket launch in November, which North Korea said was a satellite launch, but which much of the rest of the international community condemned as a test of its intercontinental ballistic missile technology. And so that diplomatic support of North Korea has been dropped somewhat. It underlines the sort of frustration, I think, that Beijing has been feeling with North Korea. Also the fact that if they have carried out a test, that underlines just how little influence, perhaps, Beijing has over Pyongyang, Rosemary.
Yes, and Matthew, you mentioned that fairly subdued reaction initially from China officially, but certainly in the papers, they were making it quite clear how China felt about North Korea going ahead with this. Now, of course, what we're seeing, if this is confirmed, North Korea essentially thumbing its nose at China, its main ally, its support. What does that say? What does that signal when North Korea moves in that direction, presumably isolating itself even more?
No, exactly, and it just shows how rogue this regime in North Korea has become, even to thumb its nose, as you say, and it's really its only diplomatic and economic backer in the world, China. It's almost completely dependent on Chinese aid, Chinese fuel for the society, for the regime to keep on functioning. It runs the risk now, of course, of that aid being cut off. I mean, there have been newspaper editorials in this country, editorials backed by the state in state-run newspapers, saying that if North Korea goes ahead with a third nuclear test, the large amounts of aid and support that China gives the country may well be cut off. This is as close as China has got for many, many years to issuing an ultimatum to North Korea. And again, there had been hopes by many observers of the situation on the Korean peninsula that kind of pressure by Beijing on Pyongyang may have had some impact, that the country could have influenced the actions that North Korea would have taken. But again, if this nuclear test has been carried out, as looks likely, the Yonhap news agency in South Korea saying it's highly probable now that it was a North Korean nuclear test in an area that's not known for its natural seismic activity. Again, if they have carried out this test, it underlines just how little influence any country has, not even Beijing has, on that regime in North Korea, Rosemary.
Which is a concern, of course, for the international community. So the international community will be watching very closely for any reaction out of China, because what it says now in the aftermath of that, presumably China is going to take some time to work out a response to this.
Yeah, I mean, I think it will. I mean, it is a public holiday, as I say, and so we're not getting the normal kind of cogs of the machinery here aren't turning even at the slow pace they normally turn at. But I expect with something of this importance, if it is indeed to be confirmed, it is confirmed, there will be some kind of reaction, I expect, from the Chinese, if not in the next few hours, then at least in the next few days. It's interesting because one of the big sort of strategic reasons why China is so supportive of North Korea is that it fears the reunification on the Korean peninsula between North and South. South Korea, of course, a very strong ally of the United States. There are those in the Chinese establishment, particularly the military establishment, that are concerned about the idea of a united Korean peninsula being an American ally and bordering up against China. That's one of the motivations for China's kind of unrelenting diplomatic backing of Pyongyang throughout the years of sometimes very hostile negotiations over its very controversial nuclear program. The great irony of this, if Pyongyang has indeed gone against the will of Beijing and conducted this third nuclear test, it could bring the United States and China closer together over this issue of North Korea. We've already seen the start of that. As I mentioned, China already didn't just abstain, but actually supported the most recent United Nations Security Council resolution against North Korea. Of course, it's a permanent member of the Security Council. It has the right of veto. It didn't wield it. It didn't even abstain. It actually supported it. And so that, in some ways, diplomatically, is an important milestone. And this, I suppose, disobedience by Pyongyang could be an important marker in a closer relationship between China and the US in the future, but we'll see.
Oh, indeed, we will see. And Matthew Chance, I'm going to let you go so that you can chase up any reaction there from China. We'll come back to you a little later. Thank you for that, at least from Beijing. Appreciate it.